everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be carrying on working on the sunset dress. I know there's been a bit of a break. I explained it in the video that I put up yesterday because I've been sick. But yeah, today I'm feeling better again. I'm feeling better every day, so I'm going to start working on the sunset dress again. I know we're in a crazy time around the world at the minute. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all keeping safe. I'm going to make as many videos as I can and hopefully give you some distraction from all the awful things that are happening around the world at the minute. So the next thing I need to do is finish making my toile. So I've already done the corset toile and fitted that part. Now I need to turn the corset into the full dress toile to get the shape I want. So I'm going to use this petticoat underneath this dress, and this is a petticoat that I've had in my stash for years. So underneath, it's actually 3 petticoats I've got here. So the first layer is this drawstring petticoat with 2 hoops, and then over it I've put 2 more petticoats which are just gathered net, and this is going to stop the hoops showing through the dress because yeah, it annoys me when you can see the hoops. I don't like that. So this is the foundation that's going to give me the shape I want. Yeah, so I've had all of these petticoats for years. I think I bought the hoop petticoat on eBay, and the 2 petticoats over the top I've had since I was in the UK, so I honestly can't remember where I got those from. You can buy petticoats pretty cheaply on AliExpress, on eBay. I almost never make my own petticoats because they take so much fabric and so much work, and by not making petticoats it gives me more time to work on the actual dresses, so don't feel bad if you buy components of your dress. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the corset toile on over it. So this is the corset toile from the last video in the series with the petticoat. I'm just going to get some bubble wrap and some fabric and just pad the bust and the hips out so I can work out the exact shape that I need to cut the skirt to get this nice bell shape over the petticoat. Okay, so a little bit of padding is just helping me see the shape a little bit better now. So you can see in the side here, it curves out and then it goes down a bit. I want that to continue from the sort of widest part of the curve there. So I'm going to stop the corset here, like that at the front. So this is where my skirt pieces will start from. And then if I spin it round, that curves in there as well. So I'm going to curve this. So to make my toile, I'm going to use the corset pattern down to where I've marked on this toile, and then I'm going to cut that into the shape that I want for the skirt. For the skirt on this dress, I want it to be really smooth. I don't want to have folds of fabric and overlaps of fabric because I don't want to lose the airbrushing pattern or the flowers once it's finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to measure around my petticoat at different heights down from the waist, and then I can use that to work out how big the panels of my skirt need to be so that they stay nice and smooth. I'm aiming for this sort of nice bell shape over the petticoat, but without folds and overlaps. So I'm going to measure maybe at 5 or 6 different points down the petticoat, measure the circumference, and then from there I'll show you how I'm going to work out what my skirt panels will be like. Okay, so here are all the measurements I got from measuring over the petticoat. So the length I need to cut it from the waist is 55 inches. And then at these number of inches below the waist, this is what the circumference of the petticoat was. So I measured at 9, 18, 26 and 39. That's because that's where the seams were on the petticoat, so it was easier to sort of follow them and measure round. So that's the circumference of the petticoat at each of those number of inches below the waist. I've then divided this number, so the circumference, by 8. I've divided it by 8 because that is the number of panels on my skirt. So I've got the front, side back and back for each side. The front will be cut on the fold, so it'll actually be one piece, but I need to divide it by 8 so it stays the same size as all the others. So when I've divided each of these measurements by 8, this is the width that each panel of the skirt needs to be at this number of inches below the waist. Okay, so my skirt panels are going to end up looking something like this. So if you imagine that's the waist,
The first part will be the pattern from the corset. So then if we imagine we've got 9 inches below the waist, that needs to then be 6.5 inches plus my seam allowances. I don't have my seam allowances here. So then at 18 inches below the waist, it needs to be 10.75 inches plus my seam allowance. At 26 inches, 15 inches plus seam allowance, and then at 39 inches, 21.25 inches plus seam allowance. Okay, so these numbers, when I put them onto, I'll draw a straight line down the middle, and then I'll measure out from that, and these numbers will then give me the correct curve on these panels to get the right shape of skirt to sit over my petticoat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do this on some full-size pieces of fabric and then pop them together. I won't show you me doing that because I don't think I can get the camera far away enough for it to make sense. So I'll show you on here. So what I'll do is I'll take, say, the side front panel of the corset will look like this. We've already got that. I'll shorten that to where I just drew on the corset calico, mark the waist, and then I will draw my skirt on. So I'll draw the center line, I'll measure down, so I'll measure down 9 inches from the waist, measure my 6.5 inches out either side from that center seam, add my seam allowances and draw a dot. Then I'll measure down the 18 inches from the waist, measure my 10.75 plus my seam allowances out from there and draw a dot. And then once I've got all those together, I can join them up and get that curve looking really nice. And then I can use one piece. Once I've done one piece, I can use that to cut the other pieces as well, to make sure the curve's the same on all of them and to make sure they're going to fit together really nicely. Okay, so I was just looking through all my fabric and my fabric scraps, trying to find pieces big enough and bits of lining fabric big enough to make the bottom part of this pattern from, to put together and try. I don't have a lot of lining fabric here at the minute. I bought some the other day, but I've kind of got that earmarked for projects, so I don't really want to use it. So normally at this point I would make it up in a cheap fabric, in like a cheap polycotton or some lining fabric to check it. But given that we're already in social isolation here in Australia, we're probably going to be in lockdown soon. I don't want to have to go to a fabric shop and buy more fabric. I don't want to leave the house if I can help it at this stage. So I'm going to make it straight into pattern paper. Yeah, normally I would make it in fabric and test it, but for this one I'm going to make it straight onto the pattern paper. Just sort of put it together roughly onto the mannequin on half of the petticoat just to see if it's going to work. And yeah, hopefully conserve some of my fabric stash for, well, who knows how long we're going to be in social isolation or lockdown. So trying to save as much as I can to make videos and to make pretty things for the duration. So changing my methods a little bit and adapting. Okay, I started drawing my measurements on and it actually gave me quite a straight line. So that's my 9 inches below the waist mark, 18, 26, and yeah, ended up quite straight. So what I've done is I've just added a little bit more fullness around this height and drawn a curve just to give it more of that nice bell shape that I want. And I think I might even have to add just a little bit more up here as well. So I'm going to do that, cut out all my pieces, matching up all the side pieces. I've only drawn this, if I spin that round, I've only drawn that down to the 39 inches at the minute. I need to add the extra length once I've got this curve nice. But I've just looked at the amount of paper I've got and I'm a bit limited with that as well. So I'm going to try and make one skirt panel that will work for the side, front, side, back and back, and then another pattern piece for the centre front to try and save paper. To save fabric and paper, I've just cut out 2 skirt pieces. So I've got my front panel, which will be cut on the fold here. And then I've got the side front panel, which will also be the side back and centre back. And when I put them on here, it's a bit harder to tell in paper than in fabric, but I can see it's going to give me about the shape I want. I haven't shaped the top yet to match in with the corset pattern, which I'll do in a minute. But I think that's going to give us about the right amount of curve
and the right amount of fullness as well to sit neatly over this hoop petticoat. So next I need to shape these at the top, but instead of having to cut a side, front, side, back and back panel and use all that paper, I'm going to cut this one down to maybe a few inches below the waist and then make different pieces to lay on it just for those differences with the shape of the corset at the top of the side, front, side, back and back. Then I can attach them all to this piece and use that same piece for all of them. So trying to be as thrifty as possible here.
Okay, so what I've done next is I've redrawn my corset pattern. Sorry, this angle's not great. I've shortened the boning to where I want the flare of the skirt to start. So I've just marked where that's going to finish. And then from there, I've drawn the shape of the top of the skirt. And I've drawn a line for 9 inches below the waist. The centre front piece, I've actually stuck onto that front skirt panel that we just had on the mannequin. I've also added a 1/4 inch seam allowance at the top of all the pieces as well, because there was no seam allowance at the top there. So this is the whole of my front panel. So you can see from the line across and up, that was the original corset pattern piece. And it's just flaring from a little bit higher than that. So it'll be boned down to where that flare starts. So this is my front piece. Okay, let me move that out of the way. Then to save paper, what I've done, instead of having to cut 2 more of this big skirt panel, I've drawn my 9 inch below the waistline there, and I've drawn it on these pieces. So what I can do is take each piece, so my side, front, side, back and back, line my 9 inch below the waistline up with the one on the skirt panel. I managed to tear it a bit there, which is a bit silly. So if I line that up there and there, and I'll just blue tack that together, and then I can cut my whole piece and then reuse this again for the next one. So that's the side front and the side back. If I line it up properly like that. So again, I'll just blue tack that together so I can cut it as a whole piece. I didn't want to keep it straight at the back because it needs to curve out over the petticoat. So this one is slightly narrower. So what I've done is when that goes on there, I've actually drawn a red line on the skirt panel, so I'll just fold that under to that when I'm doing my centre back piece. Oh, it's doing this blur thing again. Oh, okay. So that's it. This is my corset pattern extended into a dress pattern. Yeah, normally I would have cut this in fabric and done a whole toile fitting to check it. Normally I would have cut paper for all of the pattern pieces, but given that I'm trying to be thrifty and save as much stuff because we don't know how long we're going to be stuck at home for, so I can use this to now cut my outside fabric and my lining fabric. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. As always, if you need any clarifications, just leave me a comment and I'll try to explain things if I haven't explained it. You're not quite getting what I'm saying here. And in the next video, I will be back to show you how I start making the corseted lining for this dress. Stay safe, please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next part.